A blood-red sun over much of Northern California, the choking haze soiling the sky.
Two massive wildfires are causing all of this. A forest fire in Plumas County has doubled in size, and a stubborn fire is still spreading in Santa Clara County. Tony Russomanno is on the front lines of that one tonight. Tony?
Dana, there's so much smoke in the air right now here at Henry Coe Park that it looks like night on the fire lines. And those lines have been moving closer to us. About 45 minutes ago, the fire took off faster than we've seen all day. It burned across one ridge, and it's now advancing on pretty much our fail-safe point where we have to get out of here. More than 3 days after it began, the Lick Fire shows no signs of slowing down. It's already burned nearly 20,000 acres through private land and Henry Coe State Park, and it's only 25% contained by fire lines. It's out of control, and even previously burned areas can flare up again.
Concerned about reignition, possibly embers that could jump across the road to the unburned side.
So just because there's no fire here now doesn't mean it can't start up again here.
That's correct. In fact, we've got a number of crews up and down this area doing what we call mop-up, which means basically making sure that everything on this area on the burned side is out, so there's nothing that can kick back up.
Investigators say the fire began in a garbage barrel at a private hunting camp north of the park. The cost of the fire so far is approaching $2 million and rising. The fire laid down low and heavy smoke covered the park all morning. But just before 1 o'clock, you could feel the wind pick up. There was a perceptible rise in the heat and the sound of crackling as the fire began another run. Trees went up like Roman candles. Thick, dark gray smoke billowed out along the ridge lines that had been blanketed in white haze. But the higher winds also meant slightly better visibility, and that allowed helicopters to resume water drops. More than 1,700 firefighters are working 24-hour shifts. Crews are slowly building fire lines by hand, cutting trees and brush.
But our objective is right now is to get it back about 30 yards off the road, real nice and clean, so when the winds come up, we have a good fire break between, we got the road, and there's no fuel in between.
There come the winds now.
Yeah, there we go.
This is looking like it's going to be another tough night for firefighters. The winds are definitely gusting, and the humidity is still a very low 25%. Dana?
All right, Tony, thank you very much. We've seen it before here in the Bay Area. People get pretty attached to trees. And now a fight has broken out over an old eucalyptus in Burlingame. Mike Sugarman on the growing problem outside the city's library. Mike.
Well, then the Burlingame City Council will be up a tree tonight, literally. I'd like to introduce you to Tom. This is Tom the tree. The neighbors have named it because they love it so much. Well, some don't like it much at all. And the City Council is going to decide its fate tonight. One way or another, some group is going to think the City Council is barking up the wrong tree. A tree grows in Burlingame. If a tree fell in Burlingame, would it make a noise? There's plenty of noise about this tree, even without it falling.
I do think it's dangerous. Yeah, I do. It's our tree. We love it. Don't take it away.
This is the tree in question. His name is Tom. He lives in front of a Burlingame library, a branch library, of course. The problems here are rooted in the roots, which after 110 years have grown into Easton Avenue, making it a smaller road to drive on. It causes a peculiar kind of traffic choreography that some warn could be dangerous.
And right here in front of the library with so many kids and adults coming and going, I think he creates a traffic hazard and creates a blind spot around the tree.
It is kind of a narrow street, 2, 3, 4. We'll measure it here, 5, 6. And some people complain that that's a problem because what if a fire engine had to come by or an ambulance? 19, 20. It's only about 20 feet, and that is pretty narrow for this part of town. Legally, two-way streets here must be 24 feet.
I don't see any point in chopping it down because you chop this one down, you chop that one down. Pretty soon, what do we got? You know, we might as well just pave the world and go from there.
There is a move to stop any attempt to remove Tom the tree by some who say it's actually good for traffic.
There's pedestrians constantly around here, especially young children, and this makes everybody slow down. Plus, we enjoy it. We love it.
Options? How about making this a one-way street? Put signs or barriers around the tree. That will be on the table tonight, along with the option of taking it down and replacing it with a smaller one. You know, the council's been talking about this for months. Tonight is the final vote. Something will have to be done, and it's not going to be pretty for one side or the other, Dana.
All right. Well, maybe now that they've given the tree a name, it will speak tonight on its own behalf.
I don't know if it's on the agenda, but it could be.
Real estate on San Francisco's waterfront is as valuable as ever. The CBS 5's Phil Matier reports a city landmark has been hit, though, with a huge rent increase. Phil.
That's right, Danny. You know, San Francisco loves its landmarks, whether it's AT&T Park, whether it's the marinas along the waterfront, or the Java House behind me. But this is one landmark that might be in for some trouble. Since it first opened in 1912, the Java House on San Francisco's Pier 40 has survived earthquake, fire, and a depression. But these days it's being hit with a whole new problem, a rent increase that very well might finally sink it.
They just sent us a letter saying that they're raising the rent based on the month-to-month lease from $800 to $4,429 with an $8,800 deposit, and that's it.
What's really got the Java House owners upset is that back in 2006, they actually worked out a tentative agreement with the port to pay the city about $2,000 in rent plus a percentage of the gross. Now, it was approved by the Port Commission, but oddly enough, it never quite made it to the Board of Supervisors for the final okay.
The Port Commission passed it. We were on the way to waiting it to get passed by the Board of Supervisors. Never went there. A lot of phone calls, nobody knew anything. Take your time, be patient, don't worry. Next thing you know, we get this letter.
Well, there was some slippage on the port's behalf and back and forth with the tenant. The lease should have been signed before going to the Port Commission. However, that was not done, and we're still negotiating with the tenant.
Now, the port says the last thing it wants to do is drive the Java House out of business. But given the gentrification that's gone on in this neighborhood and the rising rents around here, some of the local business people are a little nervous at what they're seeing.
It's unfair to require every business to perform at the same level as McDonald's.
Now, whether or not this remains to be something that can be worked out or something that's fatal for Java House remains to be seen, Dana, but I gotta tell you, from the reaction we've seen here and today, you mess with the landmark, you're messing with something down here.
Wow, but the port admits some fault here, according to the slippage on the port's behalf.
That's what they're saying. Okay, we had a lease, they had a deal. What was the slippage? How did it happen? And then boom, why do you get this letter going up? Any way you cut it, it doesn't feel good.
All right, Phil Matier in San Francisco, thank you. Starting today, 85 square miles of ocean waters off of the California coast are off limits to most fishing. Tony Russomanno tells us why the areas are being protected and how the restrictions will be enforced.
We're on patrol aboard the state fish and game enforcement boat, the Marlin. Captain Keith Long is taking us to an area off Pebble Beach in Monterey County that's off limits to fishing. Not that that stops everyone.
This area down here is like a hotbed because the amount of people and the amount of good fishing.
Intentional poachers?
Some, yes.
As of today, 29 offshore areas from Pigeon Point in San Mateo County to Point Conception in Santa Barbara County are under stringent new state restrictions on fishing.
The point of doing this is to protect marine ecosystems, is to set aside critical habitats and marine landscapes so fish species can recover.
California is the first state in the nation to enact such comprehensive coastal protection, and the Central Coast is the first part of the state to be included. Patrolling more than 1,000 square miles of Central California waters is a huge job. The state added 9 game wardens for marine enforcement, and there are 6 boats this size or larger, but the coast has a lot of places to hide.
Did they get away with it? No, not if we can help it.
It's a big area to patrol, though.
Very big.
State officials say they asked for recommendations from fishermen before making a final decision. Some fishermen say they were double-crossed.
They asked us where we fished. They said, we don't want to take you guys' best fishing areas away, so tell us where you fish. So we did, reluctantly, and lo and behold, the next thing you know, that's where all the reserves go.
You think you got set up?
We totally got set up.
One of the things I should also tell you that the Point Loma...
California's Secretary of Resources says the fishing restrictions will protect rockfish, salmon, abalone, and kelp.
These activities are very, very controversial for the most part.
Eventually, the entire California coast will be studied for protected areas. Hearings are already underway for the next region, from San Mateo County north past San Francisco to Mendocino. On Monterey Bay, Tony Russomanno, CBS 5.